Hey, Patty. How you doing today? It's so funny that you're here. I had a dream about you last night. I'll have to tell you about it later on. It was pretty different. So, I don't know why. All right. It was mostly about your house. Hey, Deb. How you doing, Toots? Okay. I see people are coming in. That's great. All right, here. I want to get my camera just right here. Okay, so today I'm going to show you how I do a fringe bracelet. I posted a picture of it earlier in the week, and it's kind of fun. It's a great way to use up leftover beads, small beads. You don't want to use real big beads, but I'm partial to these little tiny flowers, so I use a lot of those. Um, Damn, I was going to get some little dagger beads, and I forgot to get them. Hang on just a second. I know exactly where they are. At least I think I do. Yes, not bad for being unorganized. Okay. Patty says she's just back from New Orleans and trying to catch up on life. Yep. All right. Oh, is the broadcast bad? I hope not, because there's not too much I can do about it on my end. Um, Let me know, Deb, if it continues to be bad. Um, okay, well, I probably don't even have the colors here that I wanted, but I wanted to just show you some other options with this bracelet, so maybe it'll work. Anyway, um, I'll put these to the side for right now because I don't need them. Alrighty. Hey, Tammy. Hi, Jerry. Okay, good. Um, anyway, I've got three that I did, although I think I've got a couple more tucked away somewhere um, from past times. These are three different color combos. Oh, good. I'm glad it's good right now. These are three different color combos, and I have done them in a specific colorway. I've done black and white. I've done more purpley kind of colors. Just you can do whatever you want to do. There's like no rhyme or reason to it. It's just based on what kind of beads you have, what colors you like, that sort of thing. So anyway, I'm going to do like a purple combo today, and we'll at least get started because there's no way in the world that I can finish this bracelet during our demo time. So I'll try to, put the different steps in as best I can, and hopefully you'll get the gist of what I'm doing. And if you want to try to make one on your own, you should at least have a good uh, a good idea of what it's all about by the time I'm done with the demo. Okay, so and I have pretty good handout to pass out later on with some close-up pictures and stuff because sometimes it's really hard to see exactly what I'm doing while I'm doing it because I don't have the fancy camera setup, so I can't really get really good close-ups like I would really like to have for you guys. So, hi Susan, hi Mary. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Um, let's see here. I guess I'll first show you some different beads without dumping the whole trays. Um, I've been collecting check glass beads for a long time, and so I've got quite a few different shapes and sizes. These are all flowers. I have a couple of different trays like this full of them, and like I said, there's different sizes. Mostly the little bellflowers. There's a lot of those. Um, the check glass can come in strands, sometimes like this, or they'll be packaged in a little baggie. It doesn't really matter how they're packaged, but my point is that there is a lot out there in a lot of different colors and shapes. There's different kinds of flower shapes also. These are little 5-point flowers. These are about as large as I would go for one of these bracelets. There's also the little flat. They look like daisy spacers, but this is all check glass, and just lots of fun choices. So that's if you want to use flowers. If you're not into flowers, I mean, that's totally okay. You can make these with a lot of other kinds of beads as well. So this is just how I store some of them. And oh, let's see here, another stretch here. I've got another box here of other flower shapes. So that's why I was saying I could. Oh, I can see what you're talking about, Deb. I'm getting that kind of weird uh, pixelation, whatever, in the on the laptop that I'm seeing. So hopefully it won't interfere with the demo too much. These are the little baggies that some of the ones that I've bought, how they come to. So that's why I was saying I could make some kits if people didn't want to go and buy a whole bunch of different things, but I'm not going to be able to make a ton of them. But if I do make kits, they'll probably be for multicolor bracelets because I don't have enough of one particular colorway to make many of the same kits. So anyway, that's just an option I throw out there. I don't even have a clue what I would charge for them at this point. I guess I would just have to see um, what I'm doing. Okay. All right. So let's move this over here. And I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm using. The bracelet is a few different stages to make it. You make a core, a bracelet core, which consists of 6/0 size beads. This is like the spine of the bracelet, and we're going to make that first. So hopefully I don't get ahead of myself with any of these steps. You know how I am. So so we'll see. We'll see how we go here. I was just looking at what Tammy said. She said the broadcast shut off 3 times for me. I got back by refreshing the screen. So far, so good. Yeah, I know sometimes that if you're having trouble on your end, it's best to just get out of the broadcast and then get back in. And that usually works. Hey, Wendy. Okay, so the bracelet itself, you're going to measure your wrist size and add a 1/2 inch. Okay, and I am using Fireline, or I'm sorry, not Fireline. I'm using FlexRite 21 strand beading wire. And I'm just going to cut off a piece longer than I need for right now. So say this is my bracelet length. I'm just eyeballing this. So I have a 7 1/4 inch wrist, and I probably cut off about 10 inches of wire. All right. So the first step, I'm going to try to bring the camera down here a little bit further and see if you can see this better. All right, so I determined that the length that I need is 51 beads of the 6 O's. Okay, and that will give me a 7¼ inch bracelet. So first off, what I need to do is I'm using some 3mm silver balls and 2 crimp beads, and I have a ball and socket clasp, or sometimes people call them trailer hitches. It's just a simple little clasp. It's just silver plate. It's not silver. It's not sterling. I'll put it that way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one end of the clasp in the wire, and then I'm going to pick up a 3mm bead, and then a crimp bead. Well, this is a crimp tube, and then another 3mm bead. And then I'm going to feed it back through. I think I did that backwards. I did. Sorry. I did that backwards. I'm going to take a ball. Just disregard what I just said. Okay, I'm going to take a ball and a crimp tube and another ball and my clasp. And I'm going to, oh, I guess I dropped one of the balls that came off the other end. Okay. It's so lightweight, but I actually felt it fall on my shoe. And I dropped another one. I'm flinging them. Wrong wire, so. Okay. Things are getting harder to see as I'm getting older. I hate to say that, but it's true. All right, so now I've got these in the correct order. The clasp, a ball, crimp tube, and a ball. And I'm going to go back through. I'm going to ignore the clasp, and I'm going to go back through the ball and the crimp tube and the other ball. Okay. And kind of push those up. Okay, I'm going to push those up and then hang on to this, and then I'm going to crimp this crimp tube right here, and I'm using crimp pliers. If you haven't used these before, there's 2 areas that you crimp on. You crimp on the further back one first, and that kind of gives you like a little dished out space on the crimp tube, which I will do right now. You make sure that you place it right on the crimp tube and not on the balls. Otherwise, you will crush your balls, and God forbid we don't want that. So, okay, so now it's got that little curve in there, and I'm going to go into the first hole here of the pliers, and I'm turning the crimp tube on the side. I think it moved. Let me catch that. Okay, so it smashes that where it was curved. It brings it together. Okay, and then I give it another little smash. It's turning around on me. with this very tip of the tool right here on this end here. It's not in the curved area, it's just flat right here. On that little flat end, I just bring that crimp bead together just a little bit more. I didn't do a good job on this. It flipped around on me while I was trying. Okay, now I've got it. So I use the back hole right here. This is the first one that you go into, and you can see it's got this little dipped area here. That makes that little kind of a U shape. And then once you've done that, you reorient your work and then squeeze it in this first hole right here. And then I give it an extra little push with the flat end just to make sure that it stays nice and closed. Okay, so then I'm going to thread on my 51 beads. If you have a 7 1/4 inch wrist, that would be what you would use. Okay. Hopefully I can do this relatively quickly. So this is the core that we're making right now. And I try to make the core to color coordinate it with what I'm working with colored beads that I'm working on. I try to get a color that's going to blend in rather than stand out. I don't like that. I've made bracelets where I thought the core was going to be kind of not so noticeable, and then I found out that it really didn't go with the beads that I picked. So kind of keep that in consideration when you're designing your bracelet. This is like a transparent, I think berry. I think that's what they're called. These are Miyuki 6Os, and this will go good with the colors that I'm using. Well, actually, I've already started one that I'm just going to do this part, and then I'll pick up on the other bracelet that I already started, because like I said, it would take you probably a good 6 hours to complete this bracelet, and we're not going there. Okay, so I'm going to snip off this extra wire. That little tail, and get rid of that. And the important thing here is when you are doing the core, you want to leave the space of about the width of about 1 bead, because you're going to need that extra length or that extra room for all the passes that you're going to be doing with your thread. So that's important right here at the beginning. And on this end, I'm putting my same combination that I had on the other end with my other side of the clasp. And I'm going to feed this back through. Okay, now I want to pull this down. And remember to leave that space. I don't want these pulled really tight either. So I don't want them to buckle, because that's just going to make putting your needle in and out of your work that much more difficult if it's too tight. All right, so I've got all my beads, and then I've left myself about the width of another bead. That's hard to do. But just the space of another bead right there. And then I'm going to close my crimp. Smash it on the back part. And then turn my crimp pliers and push it together. And then I'm just going to move up with that little pad and give it an extra little squeeze just to make sure that it doesn't loosen up. And then I'm going to cut off that extra tail there. You could keep some of that tail and incorporate it into your beads for a little extra strength, possibly, but I find that it just kind of gets in the way, gets hung up on the threads. Okay, so that's building your core right there. Okay. And if you haven't used these little trailer hitch or ball and socket clasps, uh, they're kind of neat. I wish they came in sterling, but they just come plated. Okay, so that's my core. Then I will start by, let me see, getting my thread, and you can use a variety of different threads if you want. Deb, yeah, the base beads should be the 6/0s, because you're going to be making several passes through the beads. If you're going to be using smaller beads, you're just not going to be able to build the bulk up on your bracelet. I mean, if you were just going to do maybe a row, possibly two, you could get by with smaller beads. But if you want your bracelet to be nice and full, the 6/0s are really important. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put these out of the way, these extras. All right. So the next thing you need to do, well, you should do this before you do anything, is kind of plan what you want to work with, what beads you want, what your color scheme is going to be, and what you want to use. All right. So I have a variety of different um, uh, seed beads for the stems of my little units, and then I have different flowers, some little fire polish crystals, some of the flowers. What I did with this bracelet is I made the stems, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 different colors. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I just wanted to have a lot of variety of color in there. You could do the stems all one color if you wanted to. It's really, this bracelet is one of those things that you can do whatever you want to do, basically. Like I said earlier, though, I wouldn't choose big or heavy beads for this particular type of bracelet. So, but that's just me. I mean, you might want to try it and like it. I don't know. But what I do is I'll take some of these different beads and make little different combinations and see if I like that. I'm going to have a repeating pattern of 4. Okay, so I've got like some little green stems here and a 6/0 bead, and then another color of seed bead, and then a fire polish, then some other green beads again, and then a flower, and then another combination of seed beads and a crystal rondelle. Okay, so that I'm going to repeat those 4 beads all the way down one row. And then for my second row, I've picked out a different combination. And this would be another flower. That'd be like a 5-point flower. This is a little bell flower. And another 6/0 seed bead, and then a little spacer disc. on here. And you always put a little, you do 4 of the seed beads here as your stem, and then your topper, I'm going to call it a topper bead. You'd put that on top of that, and then you'd put another, um, I don't think I said this, but these are 11 O's for the stem, and then you'd put another 11 O on the top. You could use a 15 O if you wanted to, but that just complicates more stuff. If you have the beads, that's great. They're a little bit smaller, but the 11 O's work just fine too. So I'll do that on each and every little unit. I'm going to call each one of these little things a unit, just so that we're all on the same page of what I'm talking about. Okay, and I put them on the head pins here only to figure out my combinations. I'm not using head pins at all. This just helped me keep them in place while I'm deciding, what sequence I want. So I'm going to do the second row in this 4 combination. And then I will also do a third row, and I did another sequence of 4 different beads uh, for that sequence. So I've added 3. There'll be 3 rows of units in this bracelet. Okay, on the pink one that I did earlier, there's more rows. This I added a little bit more on here. I think there's 4 rows on here, but this one to me is just a little bit too much. And here again, I don't care that I picked these white core beads. I don't like that now that I'm looking at it. Although I made this a few years ago, so at the time I guess I must have thought it was great, but I'm not liking it that much now. But when you put these on, they are nice and full because they have the extra rows. Okay. All right. So that's the little unit choices that I picked. Okay. And now, of course, I've got them all out of sequence for when I pick up the bracelet that I started. But I'm going to start this one off clean. And for the thread, I'm using KO. There are a variety of different threads that you can use. This was one I was just trying out because I hadn't tried this one before. And, oh, where's my thread? I guess I should take off this plastic thing because it is in the way. All right, you can use Nymo thread. You can use Superlon. There are a lot of different threads that you could use. Okay, so I'm going to take, now ideally when I do the thread, when I'm starting the bracelet out, I will do about 2, what I'd say 2 wingspans, which is just a little bit maybe more than a yard. Okay, you're going to be changing thread. You're just not going to be able to do the whole bracelet with one continuous thread, and you wouldn't want to because it is it's just too awkward to have all that length of thread to work with. I'm using a size 12 beading needle, and I'm going to thread my needle, hopefully. It's always a little more of a challenge to thread a size 12 beading needle, but it's a good size to work with this particular bracelet. Now I'm seeing that this thread is splitting just a tiny bit, which you really don't want. You could wax this cord. I don't have any wax with me here, so I'm just going to try to do the best I can. And I don't have a needle threader with me, which I really haven't needed to use, but I'm seeing that maybe I might benefit by using one of those. I had it and then I dropped it. Okay. I should have threaded my needle first so that I wouldn't waste time doing this. And you guys can see how fumble-fingered I am. So that I'm going to leave myself about a 6-inch or 8-inch tail. Not a tail, but I'm just after you get it in the needle. And what I do here is this. I'm going to insert, it doesn't matter which end you start with. I'm going to insert my needle back about, oh, let's just do a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. Let's go back 12 beads and put my needle through. And then I'm going to come up between the first and second bead of the row. Okay? So I'm going to pull that up. Well, I didn't cut myself near enough thread. Well, this is just going to be a practice one anyway. All right, so let's just say I'm going to go back here and I'm going to come up through beads 1 and 2. And I'm going to leave myself about 4 inches of tail sticking out there. All right. And we'll just kind of hang on to that for right now. We'll incorporate that in just a little bit when we get down to it. Okay, so I'm between beads 1 and 2, and I'm going to pick up 4 of my 11 O's, and I'll pick up a 6/0 seed bead. It doesn't really matter which ones. I'm just doing this as the demonstration right now. So, but you should have yourself a set pattern. All right, so I've got the first unit on here. Now I'm going to bypass the 11 that's on the top and go back through the 6/0 bead, and then the 4 11 O's. And then I'm going to go underneath the bead that the thread just came out of. Okay. And I'm going to bring my thread through, and give it a little tug, make sure that it's all through the little unit. And then I'll get ready for get my second one ready. Okay. And now I'll pick a flower. And I'm using the same color topper bead, the same color 11/0 as I'm using on the stem of that particular unit. So I'm pulling that up. Then I bypass that 11/0, go through the flower and down through the 4 11/0s. And make sure that you're going through each of the beads and that you're not missing the beads, and then the thread will show on the outside of the unit. You don't want to do that. All right, so I'm going to pull my thread through. And the other very important thing is, as you're doing these, you don't want these 11/0s to lodge in between the 6/0s. That is just going to take up some space, and it's going to make everything tighter and bunchier. So you want to make sure that those little 4 beads stay above the 6/0. I hope I'm making sense. All right, so now I'll get 4 more. All right, and I will get a little check crystal here and the same color 11O. And it's easy to get tangled up on things when you're working with long pieces of thread. So you want to try to keep anything that can get caught in the thread out of your way. All right, I'm bypassing the 11O and going down into the 4 11Os and under the 6 in the core and pull up. Now sometimes these little units will get away from you, so you can pull the unit itself up and get them back in alignment. Because we've just started with this, it's just not as stable as it will be as we keep moving along. It will become a lot easier to handle this stuff once we get the tail end tied down, for one thing, and get a little bit more of this stuff on the core beads. So just keep an eye on your work to make sure that everything is lined up the right way. All right, so we've got 3 of them on here. And that's why I said this is a long process. But I find that once you get rolling, I find it relaxing. And there again, this is something that you can work on your lap in the evening if you're watching TV or whatever. You're not really going to be watching the TV, but my husband likes me to keep him company when he's watching TV. So I find like I still want to do something and not just watch TV. So that's times when it's good to work on stuff like this. All right, so I'm going through those 4 11Os. Okay. You guys understanding this okay? I mean, am I presenting it the right way so that you understand? Because you can ask questions as we go along, and I will hope to answer them. But I think having a nice variety of beads is kind of a fun thing. But there again, like I said, if you have a lot of extra things, extra beads, this might be a good way to use them up. All right, moving right along. I'll work up until we incorporate the tail, we'll tie the tail in there, and then I will start with the second row on the other bracelet that I already had started, so that you can see how this all works without having to wait forever to watch me finish a whole row. But really be careful that you go through all your beads and not skip any, because you'll be upset that you missed something or that you have a thread sticking out that you can't really hide after the fact. All right, so we have, these are just kind of flopping, but really this is what I would consider the first row, all on one side, and then when I come in, when I finish this end, then I'll start on the other end with another row. Tammy's asking, as you go along, are you connecting them right next to each other on the core bracelet? They're in between each of the units goes in between a core bead. So there's not two beads on one core bead. There are the units are in between singly. Is that what you mean, Tammy? All right. So, all right. Let's see. It would keep things easier, simpler, whatever you want to say, um, if you don't have so many color choices or so many uh, bead choices on the top. That's just totally up to you. You know what you're trying to achieve with your the look of your bracelet. So I'm repeating the pattern now. I'll go back with those 4. Actually, I went 5. I was not thinking, I was talking. Okay. But it's just, I found it easier to just keep my 4 sequence uh, colors or combinations right in front of me so I could know what to do next and keep it going that way. Yeah, I go under with the thread. I'm going under each core bead, and it comes the item comes. I mean, not the item. The unit comes up in between each core bead. I think on the handout that there's a better. Yeah, in the handout you'll see a close-up picture or close-up pictures of what I'm doing. This is very difficult to show you properly what I'm doing with this kind of camera setup that I have. It's just I just can't get the close-ups that that would be needed to see everything really well. Okay. Alrighty. There are so many choices of seed beads. It's mind-boggling. There are uh, transparents, opaques, color-lined, silver-lined, um, Picasso. There's just so many different choices that you could lose your mind trying to pick out what you want to use. But if you do any beading or much beading over the years, you will accumulate a lot of different colors that you can use in different projects. Okay. You see, as I don't know, can you see better this way? Closer? I've got my, I'm going to wait to see. Okay, so I've got my core beads, I mean, my unit beads, and I'm going under or through the core bead, next to the core bead that I had just come out of. Now, some of this stuff's getting away from me, so I want to pull these cords so that they're not leggy and have the thread showing. We don't want the thread to show. Okay. All right, one more bead and then I'll be at the tail. All right, skipping that 11, going through the flower, going back through the 4 11 O's. and then under that core bead. Okay, so that brings me to where the tail is. And we're going to tie that off so you can see where we're at right here. It really, it doesn't seem to take that long to be moving along, but when you're making this bracelet pretty full, it does take time. I didn't count my my time exactly, but I would say, because I didn't work with it continually, but I would say over the course of maybe 6 hours, I got it done. All right, so I'm going to take the 2 threads. So I'm going to get rid of the tail, and I'm going to make a knot, and then make a second knot, and cut that little tail thread off. That's just one less thing to worry about. Okay. So now I just have the 1 cord. Okay, so then I'm just going to go all the way down the row till I get to the end. All right, so when I get to the end, this is the different one that I had already started. I didn't do a good job of keeping the thread from tangling here. Let me see. Okay, so this is a little bit different core here. All right, so this is a bracelet with the pattern of 4 combination going all the way down from start to the end of the first row. Okay. All right, let's see, Deb's got a question here. Oh, that's a long one. Deb says, I thought I would share my funny story. It begins with a wow, $5 for all those beads. Then I realize I will need some fancy beads for the end. I'll need some soft flex or comparable wire, crimp beads. Might need guardian thingamabobs. The wire guards, yeah, not on this, we don't. And crimp cover beads. And a bead mat and a 4-in-1 crimper, some fire line, some GS hypo cement because you don't want all things coming unglued, and I'd save a ton on that $5 bag of beads. Well, there's different ways to think about it, Deb. All of this stuff takes money. It really does. Over time, you spend a ton of money on different supplies. However, a lot of the supplies can do double duty on different projects, different techniques, different things, So hopefully you'll find other ways to use those items. But I understand what you're saying. It's there's just a ton of stuff that you can buy and spend. I mean, I've had some of these beads for years that have just sat in a drawer. And, from time to time you find a project that, hey, I need a 6-0 purple bead, and you've got it. I mean, those are great things to happen, when you're looking for something and you've got it. But it doesn't matter how many supplies, beads, whatever. It doesn't matter how much of that stuff you have. You always need something else. That's just the law. That's the way stuff works. So you try to make it work to your advantage. I mean, these are nice gifts to make people. They're time consuming. I don't know if everybody on the receiving end would appreciate that or realize that. But if you give them as gifts or you sell a few, you kind of make your seed money back. You know, at least that's always how I've tried to do it. Make something work for you, and in the meantime, uh, enjoy it. You know, enjoy doing this stuff. So I consider this stuff therapeutic. It's my therapy, and but at this point, I would say therapy might have been cheaper. I don't know, but I sure do enjoy doing it. So, you know, that's my take on it. Yeah, there's always just one more thing, and it's always another rabbit hole to go down. And but I don't know. I like it and I enjoy it. And like I said, a lot of this stuff has been sitting around for a long time, and the idea is to find different creative ways to use it. So with that, I'm going to get back to this. So, hello, Anna Marie. All right. So, I'm starting on my second row. This is my first row, and I'm at the end of it here. And let me see if I have my needle. Oh, that's the needle from the other one. Oh, good. It's still on here, so I don't have to rethread my needle. This is a much longer cord here. Now, I messed up my sequence with all these things, so I want to look at what I did so I don't repeat the second row the same as the first. So my sequence was, all right, what was it? Okay, this was my first sequence, so I'll get that out of the way so I don't repeat that. This will be the second sequence here, second pattern sequence. All right, so all right, all right. So I'm getting my 4B, my 11 O's, and I've come out. Oh, great. How do I do this? Sorry. Hmm. Well, let's hope that this keeps going because it looks like my laptop is frozen. Tell me if you're having any problems. I think that phone call messed it up somewhat. All right. Try to make sure you don't lose that part of your thread and pull it out of your needle, which I almost did just now. All right. So working on your second row, it's better if you can try to keep the first row out of your way, like flipping it on its side here. Okay. There we go. It does, it is a little bit cumbersome to hold on to all this stuff, but I don't want that to deter you from trying this because really once you get going with it, it's not so difficult. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're having computer issues, operator errors. That I do a lot. But I'll just do a few more. and we can recap this because it really is all repetition. And I think it's fun to do other projects, other type technique projects. Uh, I tend to kind of jump in between the different things that I like to do because I could get burned out doing the same thing over and over and over again. And when you jump around from technique to technique, it's kind of like, oh, this is all new again. You know, when you haven't, when you revisit something that you haven't for a while. I think it's quite fun. It keeps my interest a lot better. All right. I push these all aside, and now they're not in my frame. Oh, good. Is everything okay now? I see I've lost quite a few people, and it's probably because either A, this is boring, or B, they're having too many uh, issues with the internet. But once you get the handout, also, I think it will be clearer on what it is I'm trying to accomplish here, um, so that you can see what I'm doing better. You can see the technique better. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it truly is. And once I'm done here with the live, I will continue on with this and hopefully post it later, or at least tomorrow if things don't quite go as well as I'd want them. Just try not to get the thread hooked on any of the other beads in the unit. But once you start holding it right and you've got your pattern figured out and readily available, it becomes much easier. And then I want to show you what else I am working on, have in the works for future demos. Oh, hi, Bev. Thanks. Yeah, Bev is one of my uh, good friends and old customers from the shop that I used to have, and we did this class at the shop years ago, and it's to me, I enjoy doing it. It's a challenge, but it's so pretty, and if you're not into flowers per se, there's lots of other little beads that you can use uh, instead of them. Totally, totally up to you. All right, I'm getting mixed up here. Okay, so flower. Make sure that those little units don't nest. Now see, I just caught myself here. The thread went around one of the other units, and I don't want that. It's easy to keep if you keep an eye on it as you go, every couple units that you do, just kind of look at it, make sure that you're all going the right way, or not having any snafus, because it's easier to correct that right then and there. Okay. On the other side. Okay. So then at this point, Tammy, if you're still here, then you will have 2 units going through the side of the beads, in between the beads. And then if you do a third row, there'll be 3. But initially, you just have 1 unit coming out from each 6/0 bead. All right. Okay. Oh, missed one. Okay, and then you will go through to the end of the row. Just like I did the first row. These are labors of love, is how I look at them. It's, if you get frustrated easily, maybe this isn't for you, but I like a little bit of a challenge. I don't like stuff to be, well, I do like it to be easy, but I don't like it to, I mean, I don't mind, put it that way. I don't mind if it's a little bit more of a challenge. If the end result is what I like, then it's worth it. And I've gotten tons of compliments with these kinds of bracelets, so I feel that they are worthwhile. But like I said earlier, you can make a variety of color combinations if you wanted to do that. So, all right, that's going to be my last one here. Okay, so I would just continue. This is the first row here, and then you can see this is from the first row. Okay, just trying to separate these so you can tell first row and second row additions. All right, so you can see that this is the fullness of the first row, and this is what we just did here in the demo, and that's going to go all the way down till we get to the end, and then I'm going to start on the third row. So basically this core will kind of be exposed, and then you can find your way into the third row, and it'll be nice and full. If you really really wanted it full, like I said earlier, like the pink bracelet that I showed, this one's got at least 4 rows in it, maybe 5. Well, how can I tell? No, I think it's got 4 rows in this one, and the other ones have 3. These have 3. So, and then I think I showed you in the beginning how you would put it on. I would lay it down, make sure that you can expose that core. This ensures that you're going to have the bracelet on to its best advantage, the best look. Just kind of separate those the beads over on to the cores to expose the core. Okay, kind of like that. And then I would just flip it over and clasp it up. Okay. Just snap that on like that. And this is how your bracelet should feel. It shouldn't be any tighter than that or really any looser. It maybe just a titch bigger, but if you wanted, I don't like stuff that like clings to me, but yet I don't want it, halfway down my hand. If it's halfway down your hand, it's just too darn long. Okay, so try to make sure that you don't make it too big or too small. That's just perfect. It should have movement when you move your arm. It shouldn't stick to you. Yeah, I can see this is not a great broadcast at all, unfortunately. Okay. All right. So I'm going to end it at that. Okay, so for the next one, I'm going to revisit Kumihimo. And we had done in the past, we had done a Kumihimo bracelet with 8 O beads. And this one I'm going to make a necklace with 11 O's, which is a lot smaller. So I've got a couple of different ideas, and this is one of them. This is 11 O's in a multicolor. I think it's similar to what we did in the 8 O's, but this is going to be in one of the colors, and I'm not going to show you the other part of it because that's a surprise. And when we're working on the 11 O's, we are going to need bobbins, which you didn't need for a bracelet. But when we're doing a necklace, you need so much more length, cord length, and beads that you can't possibly work with all this stuff without getting tangled, just unbelievably tangled. So I'll show you how to use your bobbins, and then we're going to make a solid. Now this one that I'm working on right now is silver, and it makes a really nice rope necklace. This isn't long enough to really show you much of anything at this point, but with the silver beads, it's really nice because you can hang pendants on it. It looks like a much more expensive chain type of thing without it being chain. These are all just little glass seed beads, and I don't know. I'm working on this. It'll probably take me till tomorrow to get finished with it, and I really am digging doing this because it's been a long time. I think it's been a couple of years since I did the Kumihimo bracelet. So I think I'll leave it at that with the demo. If you're just coming in and didn't see what I did, you can watch the replay. This is not a very good connection, I guess. Bad internet day or something, because a lot of people were having trouble with it. So I'm going to watch the replay in a little while, and but there's nothing I can do about it. So I'll post the link for watching this if you got to watch it on the replay, and I will also post the handout. So the handout's pretty good, I think, to explain what you couldn't see really up close, and it does show you how to change threads when you run out. Before you run out and you need to change a thread, it will show you how I do it. I mean, it's not rocket science, but um, it's good to know how to change threads because you would need to have like 6 yards of thread probably, and you couldn't possibly be working on your project like that without getting all tangled up. So Tammy says, I'll tell you, I had a Kumihimo project started for a couple months, but I get so frustrated trying to keep the beads to sit in the correct spot. I just want to throw it across the room. You should not have to do that. You should not have to feel that way, Tammy. So maybe in the next demo when we do this, maybe something will um, enlighten you so that you don't have that issue, because it should be fun. It shouldn't be frustrating. And there's a few good tips when you're working, the way that you work around the disc, that uh, things that you always have to do to make sure that you always come back to the right place, so that you don't skip beads, because there's nothing worse than working on this project and you miss a bead or two, and you can't you can't go back and fix that. I mean, if you find your mistake right away and you can kind of backtrack, that's okay. But if you find it several inches down, it's kind of, it's bad. I mean, it's either you take it all apart to that point, or or you just give up and start a new one, or you live with that uh, bead space in there, and that's a hard thing to do. Um, there's no way that you can add a bead um, after the fact. It's like, you can't sew one in, you can't glue one in. It's just out of alignment, and that's just the way it's going to be unless you take it all apart and start all over again. Okay, well, we'll go over all of that stuff again, Tammy, and I can help you too. We can do one-on-one or something in a chat or something if you're having trouble, because I'd like to see you stick with it. Unless you really don't like it. But if it's because some things are happening and you don't know, uh, how to correct that, um, it could be frustrating. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll just go over all the normal steps like we did for making the bracelet. And yeah, there's the bead crochet too, which I don't do. That's something that I just can't wrap my head around that. I have a good friend who teaches bead crochet, and she does beautiful work, excellent patterns, all kinds of neat stuff. But I can't do it. So so the Kumihimo is the same look with, to me, not any of the aggravation. So hopefully we'll get that sorted out for you, Tammy. All right, guys. I can't think of anything else. Oh, and I dug out these little dagger beads, and I didn't use them, but they're also, they would be that and little teardrops. Let me see if I can bring the camera down. Just one quick thing before you go. There are little, they call them drop beads, I think, sometimes. And little, let's see here. These are little daggers. They have the one hole at the top, as well as the little drop beads. You can incorporate those inside these little fringe bracelets too, and those are kind of cute little spiky things if you didn't like the flowers so much in there. There are other choices that you can use to incorporate into your bracelet. So that's it for today, guys, and I'll see you in the group and in a couple of weeks. So take care. Thanks for watching. I always enjoy when you join me. Thanks. Bye bye.